All right, is this on? What is happening to everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic end to their weekend. I know I sure have. It's been kind of a busy weekend around the Mason household. So, what have we been up to? Well, 309 gear is installed. Want to send a huge thanks to two good friends of mine, Robert Eaton and Chris Grohl. Could not have done this without you. Robert Eden actually hosted the event of the gear swap. So got down there yesterday early morning and got this gear swapped out, and have been playing around with the transmission tune primarily. Hey, DSRT, say what up, B? Got the arm flex? I like it. Sherrod saying, let's get it, and good evening. I like it. Cran man, hey, how you been, B? Doing good, Cran? Oh man, doing real good as a matter of fact. So thank you very much. So yeah, the 309 gear is in. So I did an earlier, if you guys didn't get a chance to check it out, I did a Stacy, what's up? Good evening to you. Speed Freak 93, what up, Professor Mason with the mods? Yeah. So let's get into that. So here's what's up with that. 309 gear is now in Revlon. And the live show that I did earlier was just kind of a sneak peek to what we're going to be talking about today. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's somewhere around there. I'll try to see if I can find it through a link in the description once this is over with. I don't know how long this is going to go for, but thoughts and impressions, right? So the 309 gear is in the car. First thing that I was concerned with was predictive shift algorithm getting in there and actually knocking down the shift points of the car a little bit. Which is fairly typical. And what I did is I had put a tune together that would accommodate that. And so far during testing, tune's working great. I've actually gone in and on the 4.5 and the 5.6 shift points, I've brought those RPMs down just a little bit. I won't be able to do any other, well, let me rephrase this. I won't be able to gather any other, best way I can put it is usable data because of just the fact that the car is going to light the tires up a lot easier now, which kind of goes without saying. But one thing that I want to discuss a little bit is what does a Hellcat feel like with 309 gears versus the stock 262? That was kind of the big there was more than just one reason for doing this. Obviously, car spends a lot of time at a drag strip. The idea was to get the car to 60 foot a little bit better. Not really worried about the performance at mid-track. Car's already pretty strong there. In fact, this car is really strong in the 8th mile with a 262 gear. But the main thing with the 309 is to reclaim, or to claim, I should say, some mile an hour at the big end of the track, and utilize the power band of the engine a little bit more effectively. Give you guys an idea, with these cars with a 262 gear with stock pulley ratio, even with a solid drag pack, you're going through the traps at what, like 53, 5400 RPM. It's just kind of a doldrum area in the power band. Yeah, you're still building power, but you're not at your power peak, and that's really where you want to be with drag racing, fairly close to that power peak. Within 100 RPM or 200 RPM, either way, it's going to depend on conditions and whatnot. So, with the way that the car sits now at, with a 309 gear at about 6,100 RPM, you're looking at about 132, 133 miles an hour-ish, give or take. And that's about where I want the car to be. Actually, 6,250, I think, if I did the math right, was actually putting me at about 131 miles an hour. I don't see the car going much faster than about 132, 133 at the most, even in really good air. So I only needed enough RPM to carry me that far. And in the tune, once I hit about 6,350 on that 5 to 6 shift, it's going to shift either way. There's really no reason to just keep, airing the car out on that big end. And I don't want it to shift one more time before I get to the end of the quarter mile. And yes, it is an automatic, but you're still chopping timing and you're shifting. So there is an amount of time that you're going to lose there. So the idea is just to help it leg out on the big end of the track and then call it good at that point. So let me get into some of the questions and I'll kick back into some things with that gear. Cranman saying it's been a while since I've seen you. Oh man, glad to have you back. CJ saying, good evening, B Mace. What's up, my brother? How's it going? It's going well. Tim Fast Car saying, what up, B man? What up, Tim? Shawnee checking in. I like it. Good evening. Your car pulls down in Mexico pretty sharp for a hot day. Did you pull a lot of weight, or are the 309s working nicely? No, same amount of weight that has been out of the car, I guess you could say. Drag pack, rear seat delete, battery. That's really about it. Well, that is it. Really nothing else going on with the car in terms of weight loss. Is there? No, not really. I mean, speaker box isn't in the car, but then again, I was hauling around a rear diff, so that's kind of where it went. So there's that, speaker box and tray, but I mean, if you want to call that weight savings, hell, the speaker box weighs all of 12 pounds, 14 pounds, so. But if we're calling it, and that wasn't in the car, but yeah, actually, that wasn't its quickest pass. I did so 11.1 and an 11.3 on the street with one indicated 130 and one indicated 129. So yeah, pretty quick, pretty solid numbers, especially when you consider the fact that those are the same numbers that the car pulls at the drag strip, which is kind of neat. The car is pulling significantly harder in 4th and 5th gear. So let's talk about that for a second. So where does the gear help the most? Under wide open throttle conditions and under steady state cruising, partial throttle downshift conditions. That's really where that 4th gear and 5th gear shine now with the 309 gear versus the 262. With the Hellcats with stock pulley ratios, they have a tendency to be a little bit flat once you get into, well, especially in 5th gear, but even in 4th gear a little bit, it's a little bit flat. 3rd gear is pretty entertaining, but you get this elastic band effect where that you're just basically leaning on the torque of the car. The torque's just kind of pushing against that gear. With the 309, you don't get that, and that's something that you'll kind of miss a little bit when you go to a 309 gear. But just let it shift into the next gear, and you'll get the same effect. I guess the idea here is under tip-in conditions, the car is significantly stronger. And it's stronger for a shorter amount of time, so you're just not really leaning on that torque the way that you were before. But you know, I haven't gone in, and I certainly haven't done any driver demand torque table adjusting, which is just a real fancy way of saying I haven't messed with the gas pedal settings. And I can get a lot of that back just by bumping up the driver command torque a little bit. No need to get into the tables or anything like that. Just ramp up driver command torque, and you'll get some of that back if you're running a 309 and you're experiencing some of this. So, but that 4th and 5th gear pull is something that is kind of difficult to explain. You know, 4th gear pulls pretty hard in these cars. But once you hit 5th, you will feel it kind of nose over. It does not do that anymore. It is still, I mean, it is still pinning you pretty significantly in 5th gear now, that 309. And that's what I'm hoping to get that extra mile an hour or two on the big end. I'd like to see, you know, one in the heat. I'd like to see 130-ish, you know, a consistent 130 or at least 129 consistently. Would make me feel pretty good. That would mean that I picked up a solid 2 mile an hour. Now, granted, yes, the car has gone 129 in the heat, but yeah, honestly, it's only done it once, and almost think it spun a little bit, and that's what helped it to get to that mile an hour, because the ET was a little bit soft on that pass. But that being said, the car, it's running like a champ with the 309. But again, it's a little bit more fun in some respects, but it's also a little bit, well, if you're running on stock tires, forget it. You'll never go anywhere with that 309 gear. Funny story on that, reason why I bring it up, I had I've got a set of old SRT wheels with AZ850s on them, and this kind of will tie into the driving impressions of that 309 gear. But if you've got an aftermarket drive shaft, any vibration that you may have had before is going to be made worse by the 309 gear because the drive shaft spinning faster for any given mile an hour. And I was trying to track down a potential cause for a vibration with the car, so I threw these street tire setups on it. Anyway, yeah, light them up in pretty much any gear you like. There's nothing like going into triple digits and have the car just kind of start stepping a little bit. That was kind of fun. But anyway, but yeah, that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about and discuss a little bit here too is drive shaft. Potential drive shaft issue with the car right now. But let me get back into here. Craig Man saying, somebody get this man a job at FCA, man. They need to hire me. CJ Coleman saying, some old hot rodder named Jim Baker built his own Ford V12 in his home garage. Yep, that's been a long time ago, man. A lot of guys have done that, especially with LS engines. Spazman saying, see the video of the Demon catching fire? Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I heard about it, and yeah, I don't like getting too wrapped up in some of that drama, man. That's too bad, though. I hate to see it. Let's see. Shawnee is saying, I'm surprised the gears help and the bigger gears better than the lowers. A bit counterintuitive, but it sounds just like what these cars need. Well, Sean, you got to remember, man, I mean, these transmissions, first of all, are very aggressive, so you're not going to really notice the difference. I mean, you're talking about going from a lot to a little bit more than a lot down low. Where you really need the extra torque multiplication is where the torque multiplication is lesser and lesser and lesser. You still need a little bit more to keep this kind of mass and this factor of wind resistance pushing through the air, and that's really where that gear helps. Again, down low, probably not going to see much of a difference, but as the car is getting down the drag strip, it just keeps getting better and better and better with each shift. Thing is that I'll be at the top of fifth gear as opposed to only being in fifth gear for a couple of seconds before it goes through the traps. That's going to be the big difference right there. Cramman saying, what do you think could be next for the Charger NA and also the Hellcat before they go bye-bye? Man, there are so many rumors floating around out there. I don't know what could be next. You know, the 427 thing is kind of played out. Guys, I hate to tell you this, but it's at this stage of the game, it's already been basically proven that a 426 is it's going to be nothing more than marketing. You know, a little bit of a bump in power, yeah, that'll come with the displacement, even if you left the cam alone and the intake alone. But I mean, you're going to get the power delivery coming in a little bit sooner. You're just not going to, obviously, a camshaft revision would be called for here, but I don't see FCA doing a whole lot. You know, they had an opportunity with the 1320 and they blew it with some of the things they could have done with that car. That car could have been delayed a year or two to really swan song the platform. They failed at that. That's a marketing blunder, in my opinion. And so because they didn't do anything for a drag race specific challenger, I mean, it's in the name, isn't it, for crying out loud? I don't see them doing anything leading into 2022. Maybe they will, you know, bring out an aluminum block. Maybe there'll be something else out there for them, but I think it's just going to be status quo. And until we literally hear otherwise from somebody, you know, like something that's published and public, don't bet the farm on anything that's anything more outlandish than that. I'll just leave it at that. Now, you know, V8 Viper, or, you know, what's the next, you know, what's the CUDA gonna be or anything like that, nobody knows. And as far as the Charger or the Challenger go, I mean, you're gonna have a wide body Charger. That's about as far as that one's gonna get. Let's see. Sean E, did you do a before and after stock and DSS drive shaft to see if the vibration was drive shaft issue? Well, I've kind of done a lot with drive shafts with this car. And yeah, before I started having issues with drive shafts, I had taken another aftermarket. It was a Wiles drive shaft that was way worse than the DSS. And put my stock drive shaft back in, and it was smooth as silk. So in that respect, yeah, I mean, I've already done that experiment and have proven that the stock drive shaft smooth as butter compared to any of the aftermarket stuff. And, keep in mind, guys, I mean, DSS has been prone to having some vibration issues. And so let's talk about drive shafts for a minute. So I did put a wireless drive shaft in the car, and it didn't work well at all. Sent it back to rebalance. It came back, was the same as though nothing was done. Sent that drive shaft back and put the stock one back in. Ran great with the stock drive shaft. They sent me another one to try. That one was worse than the one that I sent them back. So in essence, we've been doing this drive shaft dance here for a while. I went with DSS mainly because it's what was in stock at the time. And my DSS is actually pretty good, and it was acting fine right up until I started spinning it faster. And who knows? I'm going to be calling DSS tomorrow and finding out what the steps are going to be to get the DSS sent back to them. And, if it needs rebalancing or, whatever the case is, and just get their input on this. As I'm talking to them, reclocking it, will that help? What's their take on it? But, to me, a drive shaft is a drive shaft. It only has to work, and it only has to not fail. And working, that's part of that is not having a vibration. Now, I will say this. I get it. It's an aftermarket part, and there's really no getting around the fact that, we're dealing with an aftermarket part here and not a factory part. But drive shafts are pretty simple, and it's kind of hard for me to, just say, oh, well, it's okay. It's just a drive shaft. Slight vibration, it's no, I don't want any vibration with my drive shaft, especially when you take into consideration the fact that I'm going to want to do some, half-mile events with this car, and I can't do a half-mile event if that drive shaft is in there vibrating. So, take that for what it's worth, but that's just kind of where we're at with that right now. And we'll see what the deal is there. Life is saying, do catch cans really work? Do I need one? I have one in the way from Billet Technologies for his 19 RT. Yeah, actually they do work. And I've done testing with those things before. Oh, hell yeah, we're rocking the big red tonight. Boom. So if you look at the amount of stuff that's in a catch can, the majority of it, a lot of it, I should say, not the majority, but a lot of it is condensation. And to that point, you've got a lot of oil vapor that it's collecting. You have the way a catch can works is you have basically an inlet side from the crankcase, wherever it's getting its crankcase, wherever it's venting the crankcase from, that will go through a metal substrate, which is a nucleation site for the whatever fluid is in suspension in the air that's being drawn in. That fluid, in this case, will nucleate or collect in that wire bird's nest, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it. That substrate will collect it, and it drips down to the bottom. There's a fallacy here, though, to think that you're catching everything. You're not. You're catching a small percentage of what's actually going into your engine, but you are still catching something. And, whether over the course of 600 miles, if it's a little Coke can bottle amount, it's tough to say that's a lot. Define what a lot is, especially when you consider the fact that little Coke bottle cap amount that you'll collect in 600 miles represents the better half of, 40 gallons of gasoline, roughly. I mean, just shooting from the hip here, but, it's anywhere between 30 and 40 gallons worth of gas, and you're collecting this little cup full. Is it really hurting octane or anything like that? I don't know, but it's oil that's not going into my intake, and I'll take that over having oil in my intake to begin with. So I can tell you, when I port manifolds, it's real easy to tell who did and who didn't have a catch can. But it's not like the intakes that had a catch can don't have any oil residue in them. So Again, how much do oil catch cans catch? I typically say they catch about 30 to 40%, maybe as low as 20% if you've got a cheap one that doesn't have a whole lot of substrate, just some little, wafer thin substrate there. The more substrate, the better, and even that is difficult to really justify, mainly because you've got packaging issues that you're going to be up against there anyway. So, do they work? Kinda. It's a weird question because the answer can be absolutely if it's designed the right way, or not at all if it's not designed very well. Billet Specialties does a good job with theirs though, and so you should be good to go with that. Blackbird's asking, does the bigger gear whine the supercharger faster? Does it whine the supercharger faster? No, not really. I think what you're asking is, does it help it spool up a little bit quicker? No, it's a positive displacement supercharger, so it's boost right now all the time. Tim Fast Cars, hey man, whatever happened to being one to one on the trans and crossing the quarter at 6,500 RPM? That went away with your power glides and your turbo 350s and turbo 400s. You've got way too many gears to try to get the thing to roll through in your 1-to-1 ratio. You got to remember that with the gear ratios that these cars have now, 262, even 308, 309, some cars have 285s. That 1-to-1 is acting more like an overdrive really than it is like anything else. Let's see. CCI, this is Blackbird saying, CCI is local to me for Driveshafts, heard lots of good things. I'll be looking into them. Dr. Div saying, what up, B? How you been? My brother got the arm flex and the punch. I love it. Doing good, man. Let's see. Catch can's better than nothing. DSRT, do you have the DSS with CV and U-joint or the dual CV drive shaft? I have the dual CV one and been up to 158 with no vibration. That's the one that I want, is the dual CV, and that's what I'm going to be talking to him about. In fact, I do not want to put one on my car unless it is dual CV, because I need something that'll cover big numbers. I need 170, 175 plus. So yeah, I'll be talking about that. And you know what? The thing costs whatever it costs and go from there. I'm still going to send my DSS back to him and have it rebalanced. And then I'll probably will be offering that one up for sale once I get it back from being rebalanced or checked out or whatever the case is. But no, I would much rather have the dual CV joint unit. Plus, it's just a better overall unit for me. Live is saying, thanks for the oil catch can question reply. Is a K&N replacement good for a no? Don't get a K&N. Just don't get a K&N for these cars. They flow less than the factory filter does. Get a Hellcat air filter for your RT or a 392. This girl back here is still wearing her original Hellcat air filter. You don't need any more than that for these cars. And then also, do I need a real cold air intake? Do you need one? No, you don't need one. I think that you're probably going to be in pretty good shape with your stock unit. If you want the sound that goes along with those open element filters, because I get it, they sound cool, then I say go for it. You're not really going to lose any power. I mean, yeah, in certain circumstances you'll lose some power with an open element filter, but typically they cool off fairly quickly. Ambient, let's say if ambient's 80 degrees, open element filter might only get you down to like 7 degrees above ambient, as opposed to 3 or 5 the way that the factory units do. But at tip in, you'll lose a little bit of tip in throttle response with those types of units. But realistically, man, if you're doing it for the look, cool. If you're doing it for the sound, cool. Especially if you've got a Hellcat. But don't buy one to try to get more power. Just buy it for the pop that it'll give it when you open the hood. But don't look at them to give them any more power. Miguel's asking, good radios for a 392. Try 5Rs, man, all day long. I've been running Try 5Rs for everything. Hey, Shawnee, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying thanks for drag racing advice on the new Hellcat. 1088 at 127.4 miles an hour at over 4625. 2400 DA. Is that a decent start? Silly question, sir. So everybody give Shawnee a big congratulations. Our man just got himself a new Hellcat, and in proper fashion, in proper Mopar chat live fashion, getting that thing straight to the drag strip as quickly as possible. Sean has ripped off a couple of 1080s at the drag strip, so don't be so modest there, Sean. At 127 miles an hour, full weight car. So absolutely, that's very strong. He's up there in the Great White North. So his 2,400 foot DA is a little bit different than mine, but you know what? I'm not going to take anything away from the man. Dude ripped off an awesome set of ETs actually, and did a great job in the process. So congratulations, Sean. And yes, you are absolutely off to a great start. That pretty much parrots what my car did in full street trim, with the speaker box and everything else in the car, with the street setup, my street setup, which is 10.5 inch replica wheels with Tri-5 Nitto 555Rs. But again, yeah, Miguel, Tri-5Rs for the win every time. Philip saying, hey B, I've been looking into the 309 upgrade for a while. 2018 Hellcat wide body, looks like the Demon Diff is plug and play. Did you install the Demon Diff? Opinion on running a stock tune? No, I ran just a good old-fashioned, old-school 309 gear with what came out of a, well, it was new at the time, but it's what would have come out of any Scat Pack or anything like that. Yeah, no, I mean, all of them are good. Just depends on how aggressive you're going to end up going later on. But you take that diff and throw in upgraded half shafts, and you've got something that'll withstand 800 plus horsepower to the rear wheels pretty much indefinitely. Opinion on running a stock tune with that? It works great. As a matter of fact, I might even go so far as to say that you actually kind of get the best of both worlds running a stock tune with a 309 gear. Predictive shift is actually going to have it shift a little bit on the early side, but that doesn't necessarily hurt anything. And I know that Chris's car with the 309 picked up mile an hour at the big end of the track, went about 1.5 or 2/10 quicker, picked up mile an hour on the back half of the track, and it's shifted lower, so it's really not working the car as hard. Maybe you could look at it that way. So yeah, man, I say go for it. I think you'll like it. And again, thank you, Shawnee. Appreciate the contribution to the cause. All right, let's see. Philip saying, I plan on raising the shift points to 6250, mostly used for street and roll racing. Be in great shape. You'll love it, man. Don't get overly obsessed with shift points. If you're like 100 RPM over or under at that number, it's not really going to affect anything too much. I don't like seeing these things turned too far up, though. I don't like to see 6,400. Start seeing 6,400, go ahead and back it off a little bit. But aside from that, you're in good shape. Miguel's asking, what was your best time 0 to 60 with the 392, and what was done at that point? I tell you what, I've run low threes with that car at the drag strip, but on the street where it really counts, I could hammer 3 5s and 3 6s pretty much like clockwork with that car. 3 7s in higher DA conditions, but for the most part, it was always a mid 3 second 0 to 60 car. And that is with Pite's Performance Tune. That's with my transmission tune. And that is with a set of, well, actually, it's my street setup, 305 35 20s on the back of that car with 10.5 inch wide reps. Dr. Div's asking, what is the topic tonight? The topic tonight is 309 gears and how I have been tuning with them and issues with Driveshaft, at this point. And, given my impressions of a Hellcat with a 309 gear and, what issues I'm running into along the way. Dr. Div saying Messiah, absolutely, working on that camshaft, brother. Dr. Div saying, congrats, Sean. Everybody's saying congrats to Shawnee, man. I like it. Giving our brother some love here. I love it. Let's see. Life is asking, do diffusers work for Challengers or are they just for looks? Do they minimize parachuting? They don't minimize anything. They are just for looks. For that to actually work, you need to go full aero underneath the car. And that would be difficult to do, to say the least. So yeah, no, they really don't do anything. There is such a minimal amount of what's known as parachuting. It's when under air, the airflow underneath the car catches, like underneath the bumper or something like that. Diffusers are there to try to block all that off and just keep the air flowing underneath. They're just not going to help you. You would have to be going insanely fast for that to even begin to take effect, much less become efficient. Dr. Div's asking, how well do those Tri-5R tires hold up to daily driving? Think that will be the next set on the Ram. Needs tires now, so maybe in a month. I have run Tri-5s drag radials on everything that I have ever owned as a daily tire. I had them on my Lightning, had them on my Mustang, had them on anything that they made a tire that would fit in a drag radial. I've run them, and I love them in that respect. As long as you're not burying your foot in the car all the time, or in case your truck, they'll last just fine. It don't sweat the long-term durability with those tires. The good thing about those tires is that they do offer, in my opinion, a safer driving experience for guys that have higher horsepower cars. They're great to run on the street. They're really good in the rain. As far as drag radials go, they're very good. But again, obviously, exercise caution. If you got a car that makes enough power to warrant having drag radials on the back of it as a daily, then you'll have enough sense to know that you can't play with it too much in the rain anyway, regardless of the tire that you're running. Shawnee checking in and saying, thanks everybody. The Hellcat automatic was born to run in the quarter mile. It really wasn't that hard, honestly. Just had to figure out the launch a little bit and let the supercharger do the work. That's all you got to do, man. That's what she's designed to do. Triple Threat checking in. I like it, saying hello, B. Stopping by to say hello. Hope all is well with you. All's awesome, man. Hope everything is well with you as well. MD Muscle saying, I love my red eye with the 309 gears. I like it. Yeah, that's kind of the moving consensus. And you know, you guys know the story. I've said it over and over again about, you know, my time with the Demon. I mean, that car was just the happiest car I'd ever driven, and this was acting the same. I mean, it's just a very happy, very fun, loving car with those 309 gears. Shawnee is asking, are you going to send the DSS drive shaft back and run the stock drive shaft for a little while? No, I'm going to get with DSS, and I'm probably going to order a drive shaft with CV joints front and rear. I will send them back this drive shaft and have them check it out and make sure that the balance is good. And then once I get it back, probably send that on its way. But you know, just offer that one up. But I'm going to get a drive shaft that I know will be I'm assuming will be vibration free to some very high speeds, which is what I'm really needing here. Let's see. Blackbird 98, did you ever get any wheel hop? Do you run a dip brace or any other suspension? I don't get a whole lot of wheel hop with my car. As far as what suspension I run, I've got a Performance, that PR, the numeral 4 Mance rear diff brace, and that seems to work well. No issues. The only advice I can really give you with that is just don't over torque the bolts that go to your rear subframe. Just barely kind of tight, just enough to give a little bit of preload. But I mean, just barely anything, just barely any risk on that, so to speak. A lot of guys get in there and just start cranking the hell out of it. That's not what you want to do. That can cause a vibration. So yeah, just get in there and just give it a little bit of rest. All you're trying to do is keep deflection down a little bit with that unit. Dr. Div, how long would the tires last on average in Tri-5Rs? Man, at least 6 months. I mean, if you're not really tearing them up, if you're just out using them to drive around, you know, 7,000 miles, 9,000 miles, somewhere around in there. You know, I've gotten as little as 5,000 miles out of a set, but I was taking them to the drag strip fairly regularly. So somewhere around that area, you know, I'd say, you know, base your number around, say, 6,500 miles, give or take 5%, maybe. Let's see. It will be what I'm getting next. That is what you suggest? Absolutely it is. Cody's saying, I raced a red eye with 300 miles on it and won with my bolt-on 2011 Mustang GT. Are they in reduced power mode until 500 miles? Something felt off. Yeah, well, probably a couple of things. One, no, they're not really in reduced power mode, but chances are you tangled with somebody that didn't know what they were up to with the car. May have had it in eco mode or something along those lines, but yeah, no, they're definitely not off in terms of power. And you know, if it's a true red eye, it's gonna be pretty nasty on the big end for sure. But it's, you know, it could be anything when it comes to stuff like that. In fact, I give you an idea. I had somebody with a fairly healthy C6 try to mess with me in Mexico while I was getting data logs, and I guess he thought he was going to out mile an hour that car, and it did not go the way that he had planned at all whatsoever. Dude was pretty upset. Accused me of spraying. Smoking05 said, have you ever tried ET Streets? A lot of guys love those also. I'm running ET Street R's on the back of this car. I am not a fan of running bias ply on Hellcats. Let me explain to you why. First and foremost, Hellcat has independent rear suspension, and it's heavy. So it's going to have a tendency to wander around a little bit with the deflection on a bias ply. And you've got the rear end kind of doing its own thing, and the bias ply is kind of doing their own thing. I ran bias plies on my Z06. And it did have, the feeling is if you're behind the wheel, the car will do this underneath you. Now it's still going perfectly straight. I mean, perfectly straight. I had bias plies front and rear, but you'll feel this in the car. It's exactly what it feels like. And when you have this much mass, I need something a little bit more robust back there, keeping everything going straight. But I am running ET Street R's on the back of this car, and it will not get a true set of ET Streets. And I'm running radials up front too. Let's see. Steven's saying, move from Mopar to Mustang, miss the feel of big bad muscle. Man, I'll tell you something. It's what's cool about the Mustang versus the Hellcats is that you can get such a the 392 cars too, by the way. In fact, 392 cars, maybe a little bit more so than the Hellcat. You can have a driving experience that literally is bookended. Mopars being super strong down low in the mid-range with enough power to keep you, occupied on the big end, to the Mustang, which really starts to come alive after 4,000 RPM and just carries the power really well up top. It's just such a neat difference between the two that you can have one of each and literally have a completely different driving experience and still have a very sporty car either way you go. Dr. Div saying, seen part of the tuning live show, was driving, so just listening, but what did you set the command RPM at? So when I got done with everything with my car, I was mainly focusing on 4.5 and 5.6. And I ended up I'm trying to keep everything below about 6,300. So I'd like to see 6,250 with a little bit of overrun on the 5.6 to carry to about 6,370. 6,350 at the most on the 5.6. Again, that will get me to 135 miles an hour. This car is not going to see, that'll get me to 133 miles an hour. This car is probably going to see a max of about 133 in really good air. So I figure that's good enough for what I was doing with the car. For the most part, I like to see shift points somewhere around 6,300 with Hellcats. But again, you're going to start running into predictive shift issues with some of these cars. And it's everything else that I was doing to try to keep it out of a predictive shift situation. And it worked. It worked real well. Let's see. Shawnee is saying, drove back from the drag strip yesterday for an hour and a half in heavy rain while 305 Nittos survived. A tad squishy at times. Yeah, so I've put in, oh wait, live checking in. Thank you very much. Saying thanks for the advice, man. I appreciate it. $5 contribution to the cause. I appreciate that. That will be going towards a new drive shaft. But thank you very much. The Driveshaft fund continues. I got stuck the week after I got my Tri-5s for Shalandra. Up in the hill country, we got stuck in a torrential downpour. It took us it was on again, off again, but it was basically, if you've ever driven from Houston to Austin, that's basically the drive that we had. And we were on a bunch of back roads on 305, 35, 20 drag radials. So, yep, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Tim Fastcar is saying, hey, buddy, the Texas Mile open registration today, but waiting in line sucks due to running one car at a time. Yeah, I know. Dr. Div saying, I get lots of wheel hop. Hoping my Geo kit will fix it. Also want to build a frame mount Watts link and get rid of their wobble at 130 plus. Yeah, no kidding on that. Watts link would go a long way with those trucks. I know that they've got the adjustable Panhard bar, but even still, I mean, you start getting a lot of deflection in that. Obviously, with the Panhard bar, you're still moving the body a little bit left and right. It can be a little bit discerning, especially when you're carrying a load in any of these Dodge trucks, man. Dude, if you've never been carrying about 1,000 or 1,200 pounds in the back of your truck, and you start getting the truck and it starts doing this because the Panhard bar is pushing the body around, yeah, that's a trip. Let's see. Well, God's penis, thank you very much for the contribution to the cause. Man, it was worth 99 cents for me to say that, but thank you very much. I love it. Symphonics, what does an LS3 vet need to beat a Hellcat at the strip? You'll need heads cam, a supercharger, and or nitrous, and an intake to beat a Hellcat at the strip. Preferably, it will have a automatic transmission in the process of that, and decent torque converter. It doesn't take a lot, but you've got to remember that vet will be gunning down the Hellcat. And if it's a manual car, that's how you force a guy in a manual transmission to make mistakes, is have him chase you. So, or be right on his ass. But the big deal here is the LS3 heads are already really good. But I would still say, call up like Hooper's Heads. Sean Hooper has a great program for LS3 heads. I would say camshaft would obviously be like a Texas Speed. There's plenty of aftermarket camshafts for them. Pick and intake, they're all about the same as far as the aftermarket goes in terms of flow. FAST, MSD's got a little bit better build quality, but I'd suggest doing a little work to that intake. Larger throttle body, heads cam isn't going to get it done, but a blower on top of that will. It should anyway. Doc Div saying, going to have to show me how to stay out of predictive shift situation. I can definitely do that. Takes a little bit of, it's more tedious than anything else, but it's actually very worth it. GP saying, here's my life savings, please spend it wisely. You got it. Mopar fam saying, yo, boy in the house, I like it. Shiny Mopar fam, hey, tell me about, oh, they're talking about the 300Cs. Yep, I love those. Dr. Div saying, I got an adjustable Panhard in the back of his truck. Yeah, you have to, especially if it's lowered. Because it'll actually sit a little crooked. Smoking 05 saying, I've had my Ram Cummins 3500 dually 4x4 up to 110. I do not recommend it. Scary, yeah. Yep. I understand that one completely. I'll tell you what though, man, I've seen some really fast diesels at the track. They're almost always Cummins. Yeah, Mopar fam saying it's been a while since he's been on here live. I like it. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate that. But no, getting back to it, as far as, you know, we're talking about that gear. You know, one of the things that, you know, the takeaways from running that gear is that you, number one, you don't really get that lean on the gear, lean on the supercharger feel with the 309 that you get with the 262. So that's you're giving that away. But that is the only thing that I can think of that you've given away in the process. One of the things I will probably do after all the drag testing with the car, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the partial throttle shift points just to kick them up a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit more driver command torque just to kind of, I don't know, lean on the car a little bit. And actually my curve isn't going to be linear. I'm actually going to arc the curve up a little bit at about partial throttle. I'm going to arc it up slightly and then probably taper it off to 100% just to get a little bit more push out of the car. It's kind of funny, you know, when you're talking about a 309 gear and how it compares to a 262, you're always pushing against that 262 gear, whereas the 309 you're not. So believe it or not, the car feels a little bit softer with the 309 under certain partial throttle conditions, and then you tip into the throttle and it just, you know, hey, you know, it wakes up a little bit. So I'll take y'all down that journey once I get all the drive shaft stuff figured out. We get back into actual drag strip testing. That's when we're going to start making those changes and getting the, not really the drivability back, so to speak, because it didn't really lose any drivability, but making it a little bit more fun to play with on the street. Or I'll just throw the AZ850s on the back of it and call it good. By the way, you talk about a whole lot of fun. So I had the AZ850s on the car, and I just was rolling into the throttle. And the fun part about it was rolling into the throttle to about half throttle and seeing how many gears it would haze the tires in just with progressively more throttle input after each gear change. And I quit once it got into fourth gear, and it's just, I didn't realize, I mean, at this point it's just smoking the shit out of those tires. But anyway, yeah, a lot of fun for sure. Let's see. Oh, Sean, he's saying that his 305 Nittos on 10.5-inch Hellcat wheels with a small 5mm spacer don't rub the inner fender at all, so that's nice. More clearance than my 392 for some reason. Yeah, some of the newer cars have a little, I don't know, I think what they did with the inner fender is I think they may have clipped it or brought it back up. They might have changed the position with some push pins or something, because with mine, all I did was just push the inner fender in, and I think I did a video on that. I kind of thumbed it and then drilled a hole and then popped the push pin in, and it helped quite a bit. Let's see. Mopar fam's asking, what exactly are your thoughts about a second gen SRT8 300? Okay, so you do know that's one of my favorite cars, right? I love 300Cs. My mom's got one. She's got a Heritage Edition, which is the 5.7, kind of the luxury version of that car. I love 300s. In fact, there for a while, I was trying to find a black second gen SRT 300. Man, I love those cars. So get out there and enjoy it. Because I love those cars. Poacher's saying, man, I saw Speedy's garage blew his motor. Yep. Any thoughts as to what went wrong with his engine? Seemed like he was, just went away, real meticulous with his mods and fairly conservative. Without crawling around inside that engine myself, you know, it sounds, I heard about it, but I don't know, I haven't talked to him. I don't know what all happened with that, but if I had to guess, I would say it either, one of two things happened, because at that power level, it has nothing really to do with the internals of that Hellcat engine. Guys, you got to remember, Hellcat engines are good to 1,000 horsepower. So and then some. I mean, we're talking, you know, 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels I've seen last a long time on a stock bottom end, but certainly very safe, far greater than what Speedy's running in his car. So one of two things happened. I will say that he got a bad tank of gas, and regardless of timing or how rich your tune is, or lean the tune is, your knock threshold has nothing to do with AFR. It has everything to do with the quality of fuel that you're running. So if you're, in other words, if you're pumping more of a lower octane fuel into your combustion chamber, it doesn't raise its anti-knock qualities. You just have more of a bad thing in your engine. So what I am going to venture a guess is that if he blew the motor on a tune, I think in that video he said it only had like 11 or 12 degrees of timing in it, he just got himself a bad tank of pump gas, and he's running a 272 upper. I don't know the tune that he has. I would be willing to venture a guess if he's saying it's safe, he knows what he's talking about when he's looking at knock sensor voltages and things like that. He knows what a safe range is with that, and again, chances are it might have gotten into some pre-ignition because of a bad tank of gas. You can rattle the piston, and that can cause issues with the piston breaking. Which can cause once weird things start to happen. Too much heat. I doubt he popped a ringland, but he might have popped a ringland, which typically a popped ringland on a Hellcat will just make it misfire, but not really badly. Like it'll be so anyway, I doubt it was that. Like I said, more than likely, I think it was something like a hole in his oil pan. So shit, who knows, man? We'll just have to wait to see what the final verdict is. I've seen some crazy stuff happen with those engines before, though. Both positively and negatively, by the way. But typically, that's a bad tank of gas, and you got to just be real careful when you're pulling up anything with a supercharger. You got to be real careful with your secondary tables, which is like your knock sensor sensitivity, your threshold, your multipliers for your sensitivity. You got to be super careful with stuff like that, because you don't want to go too far away from stock if you're throwing pulleys at it. But if you're throwing pulleys at it, it's going to throw false knock. So it's just there's a balancing act there. And if you've got bad gas, that can screw with your data acquisition. You'll think you're getting false knock and it's real knock. So all kinds of weird stuff can happen. Plus, one of the symptoms he was talking about was it was only throwing knock at, I think it was a 4-5 shift or something like that. A lot of these Hemis, you can't use 20/20 hindsight vision to say, oh, that was a problem. A lot of Hemis will do that. You'll see it have knock and then it immediately starts taking it away. It's typically false knock at that point. And it's just when the car shifts, there's other noises that are going on. The knock sensor sees something, and then they immediately start throwing all the timing back into the car. So that might be something that, again, not seeing his data log, but that's probably along the lines of what he was seeing. His tuner probably looked at it and said, oh yeah, that's normal. You see it on the shift a lot. You see it on stock cars all the time. Don't worry about it, and these things happen. This is race car stuff, and race car stuff includes bad things happening. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Let's see. Shawnee's asking or saying, I wonder if the 309 gear will be harder to launch at the strip. I can't wait to see the raw data. If Chris's car is any indication, this car is going to be a riot to launch. No issues with his car launching, and my car is a little bit lighter than his, so I don't see there being any issue with mine either. Be just like launching a slightly detuned red eye. Cody's saying, turns out the red eye was using the black key and it was his first time racing it. Oh, well, gee, that tells you all you need to know. SRT Charger, old man 2006 saying, What do strut mounts do, and should I replace them? 6.1 Hemi and insulator, 71,000 miles. So the strut mounts or the strut braces, what they do is they just kind of help keep everything tied together. I would say a rear strut brace would do you some good. The front won't. You actually have one from the factory. It starts about right there, and it kind of goes at an arc to the back of the car and then back around. Pretty good unit. They have better units on the aftermarket front, but the rear strut brace would probably be the one that you're looking for. And yeah, they work well. They do tighten up the car a little bit. Stephen Burke saying, still got the good old 5.7 rusted out ram, the rust holes and aerodynamic properties. I like it. Those are speed holes, brother. Gramming down, as they say. Scott Free saying, thank you for your knowledge. I have an SRT8 2010 Challenger with an auto stick. What is an affectic? Looks like we lost the feed there on that. Oh, here he goes. Sorry, safe shift RPM without burning up the transmission. I would say 61, 6200 is about as hard as I would turn it. Mopar fam saying, haha, it seems like everyone loves the 300s. Never thought there would be so much appreciation and support for these cars. It's like they're just getting as popular as Chargers and Challengers. I'll tell you what, man, everybody loves them. They're cool cars. And, I mean, dude, you can pack 4 of your buddies in there, super comfy. And like I say, they're awesome cars. It just sucks that we don't have the latest iteration. I mean, I think the Aussies have it. I think that, you know, the latest 6.4 generation SRT 300, we just can't get our hands on one. But no, I love those cars. Mopar fam saying, I'm definitely couldn't wait for my mom to get a brand new Durango SRT. Yeah, Durango SRTs are pretty cool too. Lots of fun to drive. Anything big with a lot of power is a lot of fun. And everything small, you know, cool. But man, you get a tank with a bunch of power, it means more fun. Let's see. Dr. Div saying I skipped him. Shucks. What did we get? Oh, here we go. I did skip you. How much have y'all made with the fuel injector FIC 127 4-bar injectors? There's what I run. I think Pice told me they have done 1,300 on a Hellcat. Yes, they have. As a matter of fact, a couple of them, as far as power to the wheels, have hit. One was 1,000 horsepower right on the money. That's one that had one of my camshafts in it. And another one, that was a 426 Whipple. And the other one was is a it's a Charger, Whipple Charger. I think he's got them on there too, and that was about almost 1,100 horsepower in the rear wheels. But I don't know. I would probably suggest a little bit more overhead than that, because you got to remember those things have got some insane fuel systems on them. Symphonic saying, I bet you still haven't seen that shootout. Nope, I haven't. Still haven't seen it. You're exactly right. You win. Blackbird 98 saying, what? I don't know. What did I miss? Dr. Dude saying, good. There's the ones that are in his truck. Great injector. Know what they support. Man, I mean, in that configuration, I would feel real comfortable with them up to, you know, on E85. I'd feel real comfortable with those things up to about 850 on a Mustang dyno. 800, they're cake. I mean, the injector duty cycle is still pretty low. So yeah, no, I'd say go for it, man. I wouldn't worry about those injectors at all. Beautiful spray pattern too. Mopar Fam 300C saying, I want to see a brand new 2019 Chrysler 300S with a Elephant swap in it. I think that'd be so amazing. Don't be surprised if you start seeing a few of those popping up. Blackbird 98's asking, what's next for the car? Well, obviously the transmission, I'm sorry, just stepped all over my own business there, didn't I? Obviously the drive shaft is going to have to get sorted out. A little bit more tuning as far as transmission stuff goes. But aside from that, not a whole lot. And I'm happy to disappoint with that. But you know, without getting too philosophical on this, look, the thing is, you can take a car too far, and once you get to a certain point with a car, and this is a subjective point here, but everybody has a line that they've crossed in the past with a car that has rendered the car less than what it was before they started modding the car, or at least less than what they thought it was going to be post modification. I've been around these Hellcats for a long time, and I can tell you that there is a certain level that I am comfortable with these cars on pump gasoline on the street. There is a certain feel that I'm looking for the car. There's a certain drivability that I'm looking for with this car that I'm not going to get if I start throwing pulleys at it, fuel systems, and all other types of accessories and trinkets. The car is going to start to lose, I don't really want to call it value, but there is going to be a certain value that it does lose for me if I start throwing a bunch of stuff at it. So for me, once the vibration thing is quenched, I will be very happy playing with the tune a little bit on the transmission side and taking the car out and doing more, not just drag racing, but half mile and mile events. Really, I like doing half mile better than mile. A little bit safer, easier on tires, easier on the engine, things like that. But really getting the car out and having some fun with the thing, not just taking the car out to collect data, but man, getting the car out and just basically acting like a kid with it, because to me, it is the perfect car the way that it sits now. The power is just right. The drivability is spot on. Fuel economy, basically unaffected. The car is just really fun to drive, and it's a safe kind of fast. And guys, you got to remember that I'm coming from a place where I've had some very fast cars. I mean, and not just by any standard. I mean, like really fast stuff. You know, mid 9-second cars that back in those days were, you know, that's back when a low 11-second car was considered a trailer car. I was running around in, you know, 9-second Vipers at that point. And I say that only to illustrate a point. They were insanely fast, but they sucked when you got them to that power level. Nowhere near like what they are today, where things are just, you know, drivable, so to speak, when you get them to that power level. Cars weren't like that back then. And I don't want to relive mistakes that I've already made. So what's next for the car? Me enjoying it. That's what's next for it. And bringing y'all fun content. Let's see. Shawnee's saying, I had the 2005 5.7 slowest version of the 300C, and I was still able to sneak into the 13's quarter mile. Not bad for 2005. Man, I love the 5.7 300s. Man, they're a lot of fun. Let's see. White Knuckle RT. How's it going, B? It's going well. I'm still running the 100 shot on the 17 Challenger RT long tubes. 180 T-stat and a tune are the only mods with the 100 shot. It goes as low as 11.8 and good DA. I like it. Very fun. It's a fun combination. Keep it up. Let's see. White Knuckles asking, do you think a set of gears like a 370 or a converter around 3000 would be a better way to go with the next mod? It's a 5.7 with a M8 trans. I think it means A8 trans is tuned as well. You know what? 370 with a 100 shot would be a riot, but you will definitely need some very sticky tires out back to make sure you plant that power. You know, my recipe, I've always wanted to build a 5.7 Challenger or Charger. And for me, it was going to be 370 gears, A8 with, you know, long tubes and cat back, just something that would be a lot of fun, and a 100 shot on it. So you're kind of building the package I always thought would be a lot of fun. So I say, yeah, go for it. I mean, that would be the, you know, a converter. Yeah, I don't think you really need to mess with a converter. But I mean, it couldn't hurt. You know, 3,200 RPM might be all right. You'll lose a little bit of drivability with that converter, especially if you're running a stock cam. Go with the stock converter, you'll be good. Let's see. Show me Mopar. I like it. Got the arm flex, the shades, and the punch. I love it. Good job. Saying preach it, B. James is saying, how you doing, brother? Doing good, James. Hope you're doing awesome. Let's see. Dr. Diff saying, when you're ready for a converter, we need to talk. Trust me, we need to talk converter. Give Dr. Diff a shout. He'll get you where you need to be on that stuff. Let's see. Saying, over beers and we'll put it in his shop. I like it. Let's see. Mopar fam's asking, do you think a 5.7 Hemi would run better on 93 octane pump gas, bone stock, and get better quarter mile times? One thing you might do is keep it out. Yeah, maybe. I would put 93 in it if you're taking it to the track, just to try to ensure that you're getting a good tank of gas. 87 can be a little bit swillish. So I would say, yeah, put 93 in it if you're going to be putting it under heavy load, just to be on the safe side. Or at least 89 octane. Let's see. Dr. Div's hanging out with Mopar fam. Let's see. Speed Freak 93 saying, I get keeping the car usable. Sure seems the 392 cars are a little more realistic for the street use. They are. That light to light, getting the power down, lots of fun. So my thing with the 392 cars, I used to go sniping after Hellcats with my SRT for two reasons. One, I knew for a fact I could put down the power better than they could on the street. They would have to try to gun me down. And second of all, it's just fun sniping after Hellcats. So, and beating them at what is supposed to be their own game, but really I was kind of gaming the system, so to speak. My SRT was actually pretty darn quick, and if somebody was suspecting something slightly different out of that car, they were typically left wanting after the end of the experience. Mopar fam's asking, B. Mason, what is your mechanical advice on buying a used SRT8 with a 6.1 Hemi from 06 to 10? Well, you're going to want to check pretty much everything on that car. You want to first of all check the oil, check the air filters, make sure that the maintenance has been kept up on the car. Ask them for any service records if at all possible. Look underneath the car, look at any of the bushings, especially in the rear of the car. Look for any of the any of the movable connections back there. Make sure that they're not cracked. Some of those cars have been fairly well beaten up, so check the rotors on those cars. They're heavy, so look at the condition of the brakes. A lot of times guys will start getting rid of those cars, and they won't take precautions, or haven't been taking precautions, especially when it comes to brakes. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, not in this case. When you're buying something like that, you want to make sure all those components are in good shape. Pop the hood, check the belt, make sure the belt's in good shape. Also, anything rubber underneath the hood, check that out. Look for any broken connectors too. What people will forget to do, they'll open the hood and they'll check the oil, they'll check belts, hoses, but they don't look for the connectors. Look for injector connectors, coil pack connectors. See if they've been broken. A lot of times if a car's had any work done to it, maybe there's some work they're trying to hide from you, those connectors will be broken, so look for any broken tabs. But aside from that, listen for any ticks, any surging idle issues, anything like that. And obviously, if it has any check engine lights, do not buy it. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing, take the car for a test drive. Have the owner ride with you. Don't try to do anything dumb during the test drive, and just ask the owner, say, listen, I'm going to put the car through its paces. Are you cool with that? I'm going to do a 40 hit. I'm listening for detonation. I just want to see what's up with the car. Also, too, be courteous when you're doing that. Don't just try to joyride the thing. You never know what the disposition of some people are with that. So just know that going into it. If you have a buddy with HP tuners or whatever, I've actually data logged every car that I've ever bought, which is kind of funny. In fact, with old Revlon over here, my wife was with me and she was holding my computer with the sales guy in the back seat, and we data logged Revlon on the very night that I picked her up. So yeah, that was kind of fun to say the least. Totally took the guy off guard too. Oh, Mopar fams. Oh, hang on, I'm missing James here. What happened? Asking, do you think Dodge can honestly push any more than they already did with the Demon? Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you can engineer anything. I think the Demon, the real question here, I think, is will they do anything like the Demon again, or will they try to surpass the Demon? I think Dodge, in the court of public opinion, is still reeling from the wrist slap that, that comes with posting a time that the car runs in unbelievably low density altitude conditions. You just can't do that really and get away with it. The Demon received a ton of criticism because you didn't see any get into the nines. I mean, they're all 10-second cars. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that when Leah Pritchard drove the car, first of all, she drove a non-Harman Kardon, a rear seat delete, passenger delete car in obnoxiously low DA. And I think it took her, I don't know, a ton of passes to get the car to where it would run 970s and 960s. And again, this is in ridiculously low DA with a driver that, you know, 2 full-grown men can play catch with. Just no weight in the car whatsoever. So because of that, Dodge really did get their wrist slapped a little bit. And it wasn't until Ray at Legion of Demons went 970s in a completely bone stock Demon that it was proven that the car can actually do what they said that they could do. And, you know, Ray weighs about 200 pounds. So, you know, you figure he weighs about half what Leah Pritchett weighs. And there's your other, you know, 1/10 of a second, right? So anyway, long story short, I don't know that they ever will go after the quarter mile again, but don't be surprised to see, you know, a Viper, the new Viper coming out that's, you know, probably only a couple of years out at this point. You know, whatever they come out with next, you know, I think the Demon was a fun experiment, but I think the Red Eye is fundamentally a better car. And, you know, realistically, it's tough to make such single-focused cars like the Demon and have them be economically viable unless you have a waterfall waiting on it, and that is the Red Eye. The Red Eye is what is making the Demon profitable, and you got to turn a profit or you can't run a business. Mopar Fan 300, oh yeah, I forgot to ask you, what are your thoughts on the new 2020 Charger wide body? Freaking love it. It's about time, and I've been saying this for a while. The Charger looks better and will do better with the wide body than the Challenger. I know the Challenger looks all neato mosquito with the wide body. I get that, but I think the Charger, with the size of the car, with the looks of the car, I think it embodies, I think that it takes to that wide body better than the Challenger. I think where Dodge really screwed up with their marketing with the Challenger and the whole wide body thing is, you know, the SECA, the TA, that TA was a harken back to the old SECA races, the Trans Am races. That car should have been introduced as the TA with some road race suspension stuff on it, and they didn't do that. They just put TA on a regular Challenger. But here's your wide body that you can put wider tires on, and it handles better. They even talked about it handling better, but they didn't throw the TA badge on it. Somebody screwed up over at FCA, marketing blunder. Janie is asking, are you still happy with the Power Stop brake pads? I am okay with the Power Stop brake pads. I missed the initial bite of the factory pads, but I've gotten used to the Power Stops. They haul the car down from 140, 150 miles an hour just fine. So there's that to consider. But, you know, over and over, you know, repeated stops, you can overheat them fairly easily. But for the application that I've got these pads working in for this car, they work just fine. So I'm happy with them. SRT Charger saying, my 6.1 Hemi 2006, all the suspension was wore out at 50,000 miles. I understand strut brace, but I want to replace my struts and strut mount, strut insulators, bump stops. Tell me about all those parts. Keep an eye on them for sure. Obviously, it depends on what kind of conditions you're driving the car in, but yeah, I mean, if it's made out of rubber, it's going to wear out sooner than later. So keep your eye on that. if the car's got over 70,000 miles on it, I would probably say go ahead and start replacing things like, well, anything rubber, anything that has rubber isolators, or even urethane isolators for that matter. You know, it's a consumable part. So shocks, bushings, anything like that. These are things that are going to wear over time. So just make sure that those replacement parts are covered in the budget before you start getting too deep into those. Let's see. Bump stops, I wouldn't worry about bump stops. Let me get back and take this one apart a little bit. Hang on. Wants to replace the struts. Yep, I would do that. Strut mounts. Strut insulators. Yep. I think you'll be in good shape. Just make sure you budget for that stuff. It's not cheap. Steven's saying Dodge is holding back. They have been going fast for a long time. Yeah, no, for sure, man. I mean, look, holding back, what they really need to make sure that they're doing is running a profitable business and bringing us cars that we want, provided that we're going to pay for them. You got to remember that this is a bit, I mean, it still is a niche segment. It's a niche market. When you look at the overall sales of performance vehicles, it's the heart and soul of the company. It really is. Whether it's an RT Challenger or a ZL1 Camaro, the performance side is really the heart and soul of any company. So you always want to see them put their best face forward with that. But with Dodge, they sell, and well, let me rephrase that. They market excitement. So they market the muscle car, they market America and all of this. And that's why you've got the 5.7 Challenger. That's why you've got the 392, the Hellcat, the Red Eye. You've got this very distinct lineage and stopgap measures between performance car and economy car. I'd like to see a little bit more economy actually coming out of FCA, and trade a little bit of the performance for economy to help to generate sales, and then pump that money back into the performance side so we can really get some stuff that's nasty. Again, I'd like to see that formula work, if for no other reason than to see what the next Viper is going to be, because if that program is underfunded, it will be very short-lived with the new Corvette. Very difficult to compete against that. Let's see. Mopar fam saying, thank you so much for the mechanical advice. I asked to ask because I'm considering getting an SRT 300 with a 6.1 Hemi as my first car, just to go from there until I can get my hands on a 392. Man, you'll love the car. The 6.1 is very basic. My only, if I have anything to say on all of this, is if you do end up finding one, have fun with it, but take good care of it, man. Don't just beat the living hell out of it. Take good care of that car. Be tasteful with it, because they're really, in my opinion, special cars. And I've seen a lot of them. I'd love to get my hands on them, but so many of them have been trashed. It's just a shame that you find one you think you like, you get to looking at it, and it's a whole lot of lipstick on a pig. So I love those cars to death. You can run the living hell out of them as long as you maintain them. If you stop your maintenance regimen with any of these heavy, high horsepower, high performance cars, they will bite you in the ass. So stay on top of that. Please stay on top of your maintenance on that car, or it will bite you. Let's see. James is saying, okay, the reason I ask is because when I saw the new Corvette reveal, they said they were coming to the top of their horsepower capabilities, and that's why they made it mid-engine. Well, that's partially accurate. You notice that 6.2 that they have in the Vet isn't any more powerful than the 392 that's in all of our SRT powered cars. 15 horsepower in this case is really a function more of the intake manifold having shorter runners than the 6.4. Believe me when I tell you, the 6.4 could easily make 520 and not fall outside of an emissions friendly platform in terms of camshaft profile, things like that. The thing is how do you build power, overall good power, that anybody can drive though? And that's really more the question, because Corvette has a strong female buying demographic as well as male. So you've got to remember that you can't just throw power at the Corvette. You've got to keep it still very manageable for the average person to drive. And that's a lot tougher than it sounds, especially in a market, in an environment where everybody is so power hungry. So you just have to keep that, you've got to keep that market position in mind when you're talking about the Vet. Now, once we start talking about the Vet in terms of, you know, Z06, ZR1, that's when you're going to see the power really start going through the roof. And if the rumors are accurate about a 4-cam V8 or a supercharged application in those cars, once you start seeing that, that's when that car's complexion is going to completely change in a big way. All right, let's see. Oh, timeout. Shawnee's checking out, saying, good night, B. What are you hoping to see from the 60-foot times now? And what are you hoping to see in the quarter mile in decent air with the new gears? All right, so let's unpackage that here for just a minute. 60 foot, you know, I'd like to see it consistently in the low 160s to, you know, 156, 155, 158 is what I'd like to see in kind of crappy air. And certainly would really like to see that in any air, but I'd like to see, you know, 153, 155 in good air. As far as what am I hoping to see in the quarter mile in decent air with the new gears? All right, so let's say I'm running the car in 70-degree weather. I would like to be in the 1040s with it in 70-degree air with decent grains, you know, something less than 100 at least. I'd like to be in the 1040s, 1050s and that area, and then in mineshaft air, I'd like to get a 20 out of it. I'm shooting for the teens. I know it's kind of a lofty goal, but that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. So, you know, I don't know. It's hard to really put a number on it. Really more because this car is so much more than just drag racing. It's just a lot of fun to drive now, and not that it wasn't before. But really to get the number out of it that I'm looking for, you know, the car's going to run what it runs, and it's really me more playing the game of, well, the car in ridiculous air has run 1040s. I'm pretty sure I can get a 20 out of it just with the gear alone, and with a little bit of trans tuning, maybe get it into the teens. And that's just, you know, me kind of going through the idea of what I've picked up with the trans tune and what I've seen other cars pick up with the 309. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And, you know, 60 foot, I might not get a whole lot out of the 60 foot. I think I'm really going to be picking up more on the big end of the track more than anything else. Mopar fam saying, I wish FCA didn't plan on killing off the 300s, me and you both. And absolutely, man, I don't ever want to beat up my SRTA 300s. These things are becoming rare gems. Yes, they are. And I'd rather keep them in good shape and always maintain them completely from top to bottom. Man, a lot of people don't. That's the thing. So they're a lot cooler car than people give them credit for. And I think as time goes on, that to me at least, that reality will start to come a little bit more to light. Saying I also may get some other rare gems of modern Mopars like the Magnum SRT8, 3 different Super Bs, multiple Daytonas, and so much more. Man, I'm telling you, yeah, Magnum SRT8 is what's up. I like those cars a lot too. I like any Mopar with the 6.1 though. Beat Flash checking in with 2 thumbs up. I like it. Thank you very much. GP's checking in saying I saw a YouTube vid that claimed that the Shelby. Okay, I'm going to finish reading this and then probably going to go off. I saw a YouTube video that claimed the Shelby GT500 made 760 horsepower at the wheels, not at the crank. I don't know if that's true or not. It's bullshit. First of all of this got started somehow or another with, and I heard about this, I just haven't seen it in person, or at least haven't caught it in person, with somebody saying, well, the engine makes so much power, but then you take out parasitic loss and it's 760 or whatever. Ford, guys, look, I'm a recovering Ford guy. I can tell you that you're never going to see me buy another Ford after all of this. If this is coming from Ford, or if somebody at Ford misspoke, I get it. We're all human. People do human, and human is dumb. But guys, there's a certain wherewithal that you gotta have when you're playing this game. This is a man's game. This isn't Pop Warner. This isn't Jew High. This isn't JUCO. This isn't some kind of bottom league thing. You're in the pros. You gotta know what to say. This isn't something you can get away with in the minor leagues, okay? This is serious stuff. And when you put things out that can be misconstrued, and this is not the first time this has come up, but when a manufacturer puts something out that can be misconstrued, just like Dodge saying that the Demon runs 965s when none of them ran 9s unless the DA was like mineshaft on top of mineshaft, that's when you get your hand slapped. And it's guys like me that actually buy these cars, you know, guys like you that actually buy these cars. A motoring enthusiast doesn't buy these cars. American muscle car enthusiasts buy these cars. People that consider this not a hobby, but a lifestyle. And when you have some dumbass that isn't part of the family, whether it's, you know, the Ford, Mopar, Chevy, import, whatever, if you're a part of the family, I mean, if you're into this stuff and you can rattle off specs and you respect this kind of stuff, you're part of the family. It doesn't matter what flag you fly under. And it's one of the people that aren't part of the family that starts making these dumbass comments that gets casuals all worked up over something that they know nothing about, and then they start parroting everything that they've heard as it's supposed to be fact. Like they're playing a game of like Gran Turismo or Forza or something like that. It is the stupidest thing. This harkens right back to Venom Kills Demon. This harkens right back to all that other bullshit leading into this GT500 that has had it shackled basically in the past. We should have got this GT500 a year and a half ago. Now it's taken forever for it to be released, only to come out on the coattails of the Corvette's complete redesign. Idiots on their part. That's the thing that pisses me off the most. And to be honest with you, it's one of the things that turns me off from Ford. It's just another number. And one other thing too, this whole limited production bullshit with the GT500, like it's something special. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of things that are rare and have limited production that suck. And a lot of times they're rare and have limited production because the market didn't give a shit about them. You know, people talk about old school Hemi engines being rare and all this and that because nobody bought them. And this is at a period of time where the adjusted cost of that extra power was only $8,000. It was not even the difference between going from an RT to an SRT. Look, the fact is this. The GT500 is going to come out with a whimper. It's going to do some things really well. And then if anything starts to break, you're going to have everybody flipping out, blaming Ford for putting out a subpar product. I got news for you. It's Ford guy that put this thing together. Some techno hack that decided he was going to be cheeky and do something cute or smart with that car that ruined their chances of me ever buying one because they killed all the soul out of it. I want something I can row the gears on or put the thing in D and take to the drag strip, have a torque converter, and go out there and scald everything on four wheels, at least from the modern era. And instead they put this other transmission in it because it's modern and whatever. It just reeks of cringe. And I don't know, hopefully the thing works great. Hopefully it's amazing, but you're never going to hear me just gush over the GT500 in a way that they thought that they were going to get from enthusiasts, because enthusiasts don't buy cars with DSGs. At least not American muscle car enthusiasts. Save that for the Euro guys that like the flappy paddle stuff and the Top Gear crowd. Not for me. It's not an American muscle car. It's a tarted up version of something they thought was going to be good, and it's turning out to start to become the freaking butt of jokes now. There's going to be memes about this thing, and it's going to have a picture of a GT500 and says, yeah, but it makes, and then a little thing where you can draw in your own number to the wheels. Stupid. Whatever. I'm done with GT500s. They're ridiculous. All right, let's see. What's up? Symphonics. If they let you have a go for 5 laps at VIR, what car or what are you taking around that road course? Spec Miata. Every time. Full spec Miata. Unlimited class Miata, something along those lines. Let's see. Or, let's see, that, or a, I don't know. I'm going to say spec Miata for now. Let's see. Philip, what am I missing here? Did I miss something? SRT Charger saying, what do you think my 6.1 Hemi motor mounts and transmission mounts? I feel like the passenger side is gone. When I replace them, should my torque be better? I just shouldn't have anything rattling around in there. But no, the torque won't necessarily be better. The engine's going to make what it makes. You just don't want it rattling around in there. Symphonic saying the Ford guy didn't misspeak. Staying mode totally took it out of context and reported bad and misleading info. Well, you know, that says all I need to hear about that stuff anyway. And that again, you know, it's okay. Well, you know, somebody knows how to pedal a car but doesn't know the backstory on it. Just, you know, I don't expect anybody to anymore. Starting to become real cynical when it comes to stuff like this anyway. James is saying, so what you're saying is that Dodge is king when it comes to making horsepower, got the shades and the flex. Hell yeah. GP saying, thanks, brother. There's so much info on the internet, it's hard to verify if it's real or not. Hope you have a great night. You do the same, man. Appreciate the contribution, too. Thank you very much. Symphonic saying, at James, any manufacturer can make a high horsepower car. Well, see, that's the thing. It doesn't take a lot to make a lot of horsepower. It takes a lot to make the rest of the car that's surrounding it durable. And, you know, and again, getting back to the GT500, look, I get it, you know, but what the fact, staying mode should have never had the opportunity to take anything out of context. The delivery alone is enough. And I mean, I guess you got to play to your audience a little bit, and the Ford guy should have known better. But you know, I don't know. God, man, y'all know me. I got to watch what I say sometimes, and it just pisses me off. Listen to people complain about, or talk about, I should say, things that they don't really know a lot about. Philip's checking in saying, hey guys, long time no see. I like it. But props to Dodge. They're actually doing it. Yeah, they are. Dimitri's saying, what's up, B? His account was hacked, but this is him now. Well, good to see that you're back in the mix. You know, again, I hope the GT500 does well. You know, I don't want to see it diminish where the American muscle car has actually gotten to this point. But the reality is that, you know, when you start introducing the flappy paddle technology type stuff, that's when you start turning off the core demographic that you need to buy that car, which is an American muscle car enthusiast. I mean, you're trying to maybe capture a younger crowd with the flappy paddle gearbox. You're trying to catch the Forza crowd or the Gran Turismo crowd. Well, the problem is that's an incredibly difficult game to play when you've built the brand and you've built that car up on tradition leading up to this. I don't know, man. I don't like the idea. Not to mention, I also don't like the idea of solenoids, although they do work in automatics. But anyway, I guess with a manual transmission, I don't know. If it's got a clutch, I want to be the guy operating the clutch. If it's a manual gearbox, it's kind of part of the name of the gearbox, manual. I want to be the guy rowing those gears. So, but anyway, getting back to the topic of the car, my car. So to go through the changes that I made in the transmission tune are to notice how I seamlessly changed the subject there. But the thing I'm trying to do is keep those shift points under, you know, that 6350 point. I just don't really want to go above that. And again, you know, what do I expect to get out of it? Well, so far I've gotten a little bit more fun car to play with. I've got a little bit more work to do in the tune if I want to add a little bit different driving experience, but that has nothing to do with timing or fuel, which, by the way, I am still adding a little bit of fuel and not adding timing, trying to make it a little bit safer or at least keep the intake temps a little bit cooler with a little bit more air, but or a little bit more fuel. But that's really it. And so far, the transmission tune is acting just fine with the 309 gear. Shift points are actually a little higher than I thought they were going to be, especially on the drag pack. And I think moving forward, we got ourselves a really nice combination with it. So that's where we're at with it. And let's see, we are coming up on an hour and a half on this one. Mopar fam saying, I feel like today's manufacturer is starting to be taken over by people who are not true longtime car enthusiasts. Yeah, it's painfully obvious, actually. Too much marketing, not enough substance, which is pretty common in, it's been common for a while. It's just, you always have a tendency to romanticize the past a little bit. And it's real easy to romanticize a past that you were never part of. This stuff was going on back in the 60s too. There was a nice way of washing past some quality issues just with flash and a little bit of performance. But the reality is that most of the people that work in that industry aren't really into the industry that they're a part of. It's just a job to them. So yeah, it's. You can say that it's exciting, and you can say a lot of great things about where the cars are now, but if you don't have people that are truly willing to educate their customers on that end, on the manufacturer's end, then you're going to have, if you don't have educated people on the manufacturer's end, you're going to have misguided and miseducated consumers on the buying end of the spectrum, and that's where there's such a huge disconnect. And part of what I do for a living is actually training people and product knowledge seminars and making sure that the knowledge of how to use the product and the history of the product and the stories behind the products, making sure that the people buying this stuff know what they're buying and where they're buying that product, where that's coming from. You don't see that enthusiasm from auto manufacturers. I tell you what, I'm open for an offer at any time. So FCA, if you're listening, but I don't think I would leave what I do for a living unless they threw a ton of money at me. Let's see, because I love what I do. Let's see. Oh wait, Dimitri, thank you very much, man. I appreciate the contribution, man. Saying, sorry if I missed the question already, but like I said, my account was hacked. Anyways, how do the new gears in daily driving? They're great. They actually feel softer than the 262. In that you're not leaning on the converter and you're not leaning on the gear with the blower as much. But it's crisper. You tip into the throttle and the response is immediate. So it accelerates harder, but if you're barely in it, it actually feels a little bit softer in it. So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that respect. You get, it's kind of a, sedate car to putt around in, and you shower down on it and the thing just comes alive. Phillips asking, any plans for a blower swap on Revlon? None. Also, what are your thoughts on Kenny-Bell liquid cool blowers? They're good. I like them. Any of the aftermarket stuff is actually pretty good. It's whether or not you've got enough parameters that you can play with in the tune to help you get where you need to be. And you got to remember that you can only force feed so much, and then you're up against a fuel quality issue either way you go. And personally, I don't like making any more than 700 horsepower to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno with any of these heavier cars. You can get away with a little bit more power on a lighter car, but guys, you're up against fuel quality. You're throwing the dice every time you fill up your tank. Is it going to be a good tank of gas or is it going to be a bad tank of gas? And you may only have to roll snake eyes for it to be a bad tank of gas. And I get it, but you roll enough times, you're going to get a bad tank of gas. I've had a bad tank of gas with Revlon, and I can tell you, it sucks. Because I was at the drag strip data logging the thing, and it was just yanking timing all over the place. Threw some race gas in it, killed the problem immediately, bad tank of gas. So, thank goodness for data logging. Let's see. Dimitri's saying he's going to get his account back since he'll be mod. Good deal. Let me know. We'll get you back in the mod. But so far, Google is not working with me. Oh, man. Yeah, he was Rift 33. I got you, brother. Dimitri's asking, Rift 33 is asking, can you run on 91 pump fuel with a 285 pulley? No, you can't. I don't care what anybody tells you. No, you can't. Yeah, you know, you can run 11.8 to 1. You can run, 3 degrees less timing than factory. I still... God, man, I just don't like the idea of trying to force feed one of these cars air and then rely on 91 octane to get the job done. I would say that you could go 295 and probably get away with that, but 295 is actually kind of my breakover for 93. I don't even like running 285 pulleys on 93. Again, it's not that you can't. It's just that you've got to remember that you've got a fuel quality concern anytime you're messing with boost or higher compression cars. NA combinations is where I'm going with that. And man, you just gotta be careful, and you don't ever want to get greedy. That's the big thing. Getting greedy is what gets you in a lot of trouble. Let's see. SRT Charger saying, what do you think about my 2011 Challenger inaugural edition? Is there anything special about that car, like a tune or suspension? I think the suspension is a little bit different, but the tune is the same. It's like the Heritage edition's got the SRT suspension, but it's got a 5.7. I think the inaugural edition's the same with that, if I'm not mistaken. But no, there's nothing in the tune that's going to differentiate it. ET Racing, hey B, Sean's Hellcat went good. His dyno was not even close to being correct. Yeah, and Sean didn't bring that up. That's why I didn't bring that up. But since the topic's already been broached, yeah, this is a tale of who not to take your car to in terms of dyno and listening to, oh God. Anyway, Sean will have to tell the story on his own because I don't want to steal any of his thunder or say something out of turn. But yeah, dude. So I was a little bit beside myself with some of the stuff that Sean was telling me about on his dyno session. I immediately was telling him everything was fine, but based on how the car did at the dyno and some of the things that were told to him, I knew straight away I was dealing with somebody that hadn't that didn't really speak Mopar, and I'm just going to be, I will say that as kindly as I can, and because the guy's not here to defend himself, but I just yeah, that stuff wouldn't have flown. Let's see, Rip is saying, so with your new gears, do you see better or worse fuel economy in regular everyday driving? It's about the same. Yeah, cruising down the highway, it's still getting 23 miles per gallon, 22 miles per gallon, about the same that it did before. So far so good. Can't tell the difference really. Let's see. Mopar fan was asking, is it true that 392s are somewhat unreliable when it comes to a performance standpoint? That's untrue. They are reliable. The only downside to 392s, there for a while, the lifter issue was a thing. It's, which is a shame because, it doesn't affect all of them, but it affects the lifter issues, what I'm talking about here, but it does affect quite a few. They are reliable. I would say that when it comes to power adders, those engines are really good as they came from the factory. You can do a few things, fast man throttle body, ported intake manifold, that can help you a little bit. But long tubes are not going to help you with that cam profile. It's way too wide of a lobe separation angle to get any real scavenging out of them. Their engines are just really good from the factory. I mean, they're just about 500 horsepower. My advice to anybody with a 392 is focus more on transmission tuning. Do the things to the engine tune to help accommodate the transmission tune, and you'll be very happy with that car long term. Let's see. Dimitri got the arm flex. I like it. ET Racing. Well said, Brian. Hey, your hood is closed. Somebody finally brought it up. That's right. It's funny because typically when I'm not working on the car, the hood is open. When I am working on the car, the hood is closed. Somebody picked up on the Easter egg. Congratulations. Rift is asking, I keep getting a code for a small emissions leak or an evap leak on my Hellcat. Other than the gas cap, what might it be? There is a purge solenoid. There's this little white canister thing near your gas tank. It can either be that or your purge solenoid. Those are the only other two things that will cause that code. It's the same code will pop up. Jamie's asking, is 500 rear wheel horsepower a realistic goal on an NA392 A8? If not, what is? Define realism, and I can give you the answer to that, but my way of looking at things is on a dyno jet, yes, you can get 500 horsepower to the rear wheels. It's not that hard. Camshaft, long tubes, ported intake, larger throttle body, a solid tune. Along with your camshaft, you're going to need PSI 1516 springs, hardened 080 push rods. I would say get a Stanke, a set of Stanke tie bars and collars. In other words, you're going to need a lot of supporting staff to get you where you need to be, but it's not doable. It's just a lofty goal. That engine is really good at making torque, and the intake manifold is just not very good at making horsepower. Now, that being said, the aftermarket is starting to catch up with these Hemis a little bit, so my opinion on that is going to change. But until then, 500 horsepower is going to be a little bit lofty. Don't go too crazy with the camshaft because you don't want to sacrifice anything down low with an intake manifold that can't support you up top. So that's where guys typically make a mistake. Let's see. ET's saying hopefully Sean and I will see you in January. I hope so. Slots are still available for the track rental, and I think you guys are. I think got a couple of slots held over for you guys, so let me know. Rift is asking, would a bigger throttle body on a stock Hellcat actually help any? Not really. Not from what I've seen anyway. Reports vary here, but the reality is that you might see something on a dyno, but will it help in the real world on a drag strip? It's going to be tough to say, man. Not a whole lot. Hellcat's a little bit different than an NA setup. I think that if you can make a significantly larger throttle body work on the car, that would probably be better, but I don't know. Jury's still out with me a little bit on throttle bodies for these cars. Toby Rama's asking, yo, Brian, why is a high rear gear 350 and up too aggressive? It all has to do with total torque multiplication. And what ends up happening is you'll have, you will basically burn through whatever transmission gear you're in far too quickly to take advantage of the power that the car is making. And then you're dealing with the time that it takes to shift the car, however quick it is. And then your next gear, depending on where it falls. Anyway, long story short, with these cars, the torque multiplication due to the ratios in the transmission make any gear, like in a Hellcat, more than a 309, more or less unusable. You just won't be able to use that first gear at all for actual acceleration. It's just going to flash through it way too quickly. And you don't want to do that. You're flashing through the gear way too quickly. You're not utilizing any of the power. You're actually wasting it just in flashing the car up. So you've got to have acceleration along with the torque multiplication, and that's why typically, for a 5.7 car, I would say a 370 gear with an A8 would be as aggressive as I would go. You can even go 370 with a 392 car. It's still on the aggressive side, but anything with any more power than 392, you're just going to be wasting your time with a gear that aggressive. Let's see. Mopar fam saying, I'm fairly new to that kind of stuff also. I'm 18 years old and I've been inspired by it since age 14. I like it, man. Math, 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 math. Learn all the math you can. Get good at the math that you're learning, because that is what will help you to understand the language of engines and engineering. What's funny is that if I can look at a cam spec, and in knowing the engine math behind how that cam was designed, I can actually see the engine that it would work best in. I mean, you can see what's going on in those numbers. It's just like reading a book. And if you know what you're looking at, you can read the math the exact same way that you would read words in a book. It's actually pretty cool. Let's see. Jamie saying, thanks for the advice. Got the horns. I like it. Happy to give. Dimitri's Riff saying, can you tell how much horsepower you were putting down by your ET more than a dyno? Most of the time, yeah, your mile an hour is what you're looking at. I've heard this, but don't know if it's true. It's 100% true. And yeah, your mile an hour will tell you more about how much power you're making than any dyno ever will. And with that said, guys, we're coming up on almost 2 hours. I got to check out because I'm going to be up early in the morning. Thank you all very much for hanging out with me, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. I hope y'all learned something, and again, hope to see y'all on the next live show. That is a wrap on this one. Y'all have a great one. Adios.